The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello, welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it's Friday in the Rim, and CJ's all set.
Hey, happy May Day. It's May Day. Happy May Day.
Oh, that's right. Big day in Russia. That's right, big day in Russia, May Day. But,
it's been very interesting, that's for sure.
Statics again here.
I'm trying to readjust the volume on my end. Let me give you the report as of yesterday for our COVID viruses in Fall River. We have 509 positive cases on Thursday, and we have 205 of our residents who have had the isolation discontinued. The fatalities still stand at 5. In Bristol County, we have 3,580 and 62,205 statewide. According to Mayor Paul Coogan, he said, "Calm breeds calm, and panic breeds panic. Stay calm." So, Paul's giving us the guidance. Now, the interesting thing about these numbers is that the interesting thing about these numbers is yesterday and today, the ban from Washington ended. So we're no longer in the national lockdown. 9 states have agreed to open up in the past 2 days, and Georgia was earlier in the week. Shortly after Georgia opened up their beaches and whatnot, they had 1,000 new cases of COVID-19. I can't contribute that to opening up their economy because that would be 24 hours, and we know that COVID-19 has an incubation period of around 10 to 14 days. So when we look at this, we have to say, what's going to happen in the next 2 weeks when we're watching what happens in places like Georgia. The other states that have opened up their economies a little bit have done it with restrictions like 25% of their restaurants being able to be occupied, social distancing within those areas, same thing within barbershops and bowling alleys and theaters. I don't know how that's going to work out for them. It's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, it's look, this is difficult in these 24-hour news cycles and daily briefings and things. I'm not sure if they're doing as much. They may be creating as much harm as they are good, because look, CJ, these stats are really skewed because remember, we don't know how many people in this country were walking around with the virus and were asymptomatic, and now we're beginning to test more people. So the reality is that these people were out there originally anyway, but now when they're factored into the equation, it looks like this happened over the next day, as you said earlier. 1,000 cases from the previous day. You can't get that by opening up a store because of the incubation periods. So all these figures are skewed. And the reality is that I think that over coverage is creating more of a problem than it's helping, because people are running around with 1,000 cases. You see, it's because they open up the stores, and as you said, it's not. And we got problems here with over coverage and too much contradictory information, and it's become a horror show.
It's definitely been interesting to see, because again, we're going to be looking at these numbers. Now, the interesting thing that we have here locally is that Rhode Island has now canceled their summer. They've canceled their summer months, all their big gatherings, the big get-togethers, the Newport Folk Festival, the Newport Jazz Festival, the Bristol 4th of July Parade. That is something that has happened every year consistently. They've never had a year where they didn't have some type of 4th of July celebration. So I'm really wondering what they're going to do this year, because they insist they're going to do something, but they're not going to be having a parade. And in a community, in a state like Rhode Island, where everything is based upon their tourist economy, they're going to have some real great losses. And according to what I've heard from the Newport businesses, which is a huge touristy area, obviously, they're hoping to focus on the fall when they'll be able to have some festivals. Like I know one that I used to like to go to was Oktoberfest. It was always a lot of fun there. A lot of German food, German dancers, a lot of beers, a lot of different things. I'm not a beer drinker, but I know some people who are. But it was a good event. It was a good time. Maybe they'll have that. But it's very interesting to see how this is going to pan out, because even here in Massachusetts, we don't base everything on the tourist trade. But when you've got places like Cape Cod, that's all they live on. All winter long, they don't live on anything else but what they made over the summer. So if they're not going to have a summer tourist community, there's going to be some major issues for Cape Cod over next winter. And how are they going to handle these things? It's going to be interesting to see how the state handles this. They're also looking at the fact that where's the money from the federal government that's coming to the state, and how much money is going to come to the city? Because we're going to need some relief over these losses. And Gina Raimondo just said that she got $1.5 million, I think it was, or $1.5 billion. And she's looking at where she's using that money now. Well, the same thing's going to happen here. Now, when Plymouth got some money for uh, their disaster declaration, the state wanted it back. The state wanted it. And Plymouth said, no, we're going to keep it. Plymouth County said, no, we're going to keep it and use it ourselves. Now, is that going to happen here in Bristol County? Is Bristol County going to get the money, or is the state going to get the money and then decide how much we get? It's going to be interesting to see, because I see a lot of fights starting to come out, especially over the money.
Well, you're right, and you know this is an issue because especially in Newport, because Newport, like the Cape, lives on its summer proceeds basically. They're going to cancel the jazz festival, the Black Ships Festival, all these other summer events in Newport, which bring in hundreds of thousands of tourists. This isn't like Fall River where you might get 12 people on a battleship or something like that. You know, I mean, the jazz festival draws people from all over the country. So does the Black Ships Festival, and there are numerous events. The tennis tournament that's held at the Newport Tennis Hall of Fame, and the entire week that they're going to have an induction into the Tennis Hall of Fame. Brings in a tremendous amount of revenue and tourists into Newport. And I'll tell you, it's going to devastate these communities. You said, basically Gina Raimondo has eliminated summer. So officially there's no summer season in 2020. We can't call it summer anymore. But it's going to be a problem. It's going to be problematic about the distribution of money, as you said. Actually, segues us into something I saw this morning. I don't know if you saw it on one of the local news channels. They were talking about the top 6 communities in Massachusetts with the COVID-19 problem. And ironically enough, we weren't in there, but we will be soon, because every one of the things had the same identifying characteristics. Very low income cities like Lawrence and Lowell, and Fall River's right in there with them. And the thing is, they finding that the COVID virus is more prevalent in communities with lower socioeconomic populations like Fall River. So, but let's not be surprised if we end up inching our way into that, rather dubious category. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But it makes sense. These people in these lower socioeconomic areas have normally they live in closer proximity. These communities have 3 decades highly populated neighborhoods, densely populated neighborhoods. It's not like Wellesley or Newton where they're all single family houses separated, completely different configurations and stores and things. So I thought that was a very interesting statistic that they brought out this morning.
Well, and again, a lot of those communities that you mentioned, like Lawrence and Lowell, have a high Hispanic population and Afro American population. And those populations have been known to be affected more dramatically by COVID-19. Uh, Fall River has a substantial Hispanic population now. We've always had a growing African American population. So I'm wondering if we're going to be seeing more of that happening here. Uh, those numbers aren't tracked as well here in Fall River as they are at the state level. Um, the new dashboard, as they call it, that came out for the caseloads is huge. I mean, I would have to sit there all day and night just to review it before the next one came out, unless I was looking for specific information. One of the things that people want from Paul, because Paul has a daily report that he posts, what they want from Paul is they want to know how many nursing home deaths, how many tests were given in the city, um, how many positives came out of those tests. Are we getting more positives because of the test? They want some more detailed information that we're not getting. Is Paul able to do that in his post? Yes, I'm sure he is. Uh, the Department of Health and Human Services, Public Health, doesn't send that out in their daily press release. So maybe it needs to start there and start working up from that point. If that's what people want, they should get what they want. They want to know how many nursing home cases do we have. They're seeing that the nursing homes are being inundated by the National Guard to do testing in them. And I know, for instance, my sister works in a nursing home, and I don't know how many cases they have there. I don't even think she knows how many cases they have there. So it's going to be interesting to see how this pans out. Will the mayor take the lead that the people want and start giving how many nursing home cases we have, how many tests are being done? And the other thing is people want to know where to go for testing. Now, yesterday, I drove around in Fall River and just happened to go by the Primacare building, and I drove right through their parking lot deliberately. They had the cones set up to direct the traffic in, I guess, for the drive-up testing, but there was no testing going on there. Was it because of the weather? Possibly. Have they stopped doing it? That's a possibility too. But people want to know where they can go get a test. Now, Chelsea has started allowing testing for everybody. You just got to show up and you get a test. Why can't Fall River do that? People want to have that
Your
test.
audio is really messed up.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. Um,
You're
I
back on
think
the.
one of the things. What was that? I think one of the things that people need to understand is that um, testing is short, and because of that, it's very difficult. Um, so I don't know if the city will go to a point where they can just test everywhere. Now I know that Star, as we spoke about in a previous show, Star has gotten a grant to do testing, and again, they're going to do it
Can you
on a physician's order. So how much testing is going to actually get done? I don't know. I don't know.
So
Yeah, you're definitely having a little bit of an internet connectivity problem there. I can hear it and see it.
Yeah. Well, I think we got to get off the COVID and onto some news here. Talking about the COVID, this is the reason it spreads. I was looking at a news feed, and apparently somebody in Massachusetts, I'm going to get more particulars, that was involved in a fatal auto accident was watching a YouTube video of. I'll reiterate that because we were off the air. Somebody who was in a fatal motor vehicle accident was watching a YouTube video while he was driving. So this is the kind of people that the heck ignore everything, even though there's now a hands-free and everything law in Massachusetts. You see more and more people ignoring the law, and so this is always problematic. And the other news. God, this thing is irritating today. Okay, let's try this. The other
I can
issue
hear you.
was the police chief selection. I think we have to touch on that, and I don't know how we may have to do this on another show because I'm not sure if this audio is even, because you sound like R2D2. I can't make out anything you're saying. It comes off like like you're doing the R2D2. It's like you sound like a computer generated voice that's going in and out. But apparently, Mayor Coogan has created a committee to select the police chief. He's created a committee, and that committee, according to the newspaper article which I have. Hello.
We're gonna put you on speakerphone so we can hear you better.
Well, I don't know what we're gonna do with you because I can't hear you at all. So.
Well, that's why you can hear me now.
Yeah, now I can hear you now. So.
Okay, just shut your speakers off and your mic.
They're off.
Okay, good. All right, we seem to have fixed our problem with the audio. We got Chip on speakerphone. We can fix these things on the fly.
Well, we still keep going on and off the air though. So here we go again.
Well, no, you're on the air. I can see you just fine. So we can continue.
I'm talking about I'm sure if we're going up, but let's get to the selection committee because I don't really know how much time here we go again. How much time we have. So Mayor Coogan has created a selection committee to get the police chief, and unfortunately, I don't think the selection committee it's more of a politically correct committee than a selection committee. The committee is made up of people from the healthcare industry, the faith-based community, and all kinds of other non-professionals. Listen, this committee sounds to me like many big cities. Many big cities have created panels made up of this cross section of the community to review police action when they've had police brutality complaints, et cetera, et cetera. But when you're selecting the chief of a police department or a fire department or any specialized field, the panel that interviews them should be police professionals.
I agree.
I have no business on that panel. I know nothing about the modern policing techniques and how a police department and how their resources are committed. And you need police professionals to evaluate, number one, who know what it takes to be a leader of a police department, knows if they have the background and have basically the right direction, taking it in the right direction. It's like if you're hiring a chemical engineer for your plant, you're the CEO. You don't put the janitor and people from the cafeteria and the mailroom on the committee to select the chemical engineer because you need somebody that knows a little bit about chemical engineering. I think this is ridiculous. This is another. Let's get everybody involved so we can all feel good, and then I pick my friends and they pick who I want, and they pick who I want. This is baloney. You should have you should have probably police professionals from out of our community to do the interviews who understand policing. It's like having somebody. It's like our old fire commissioners. We had a bartender, a housewife, and somebody who worked at I don't know where, and they were supposed to be fire commissioners. They didn't even know we had different size hose on the trucks.
Right.
Non-professionals dealing with a job that you have to understand. No, I'm not saying you can't have an oversight committee about the police made up of people like this, but to select the police chief, it's like having the janitor select the head of the MIT. I mean, these people, they may be experts in their field, but I don't think you'd feel comfortable, CJ, sitting on a committee selecting a police chief. I wouldn't.
No, I wouldn't either. And the thing is that the mayor doesn't want to release the names of the people that are on this committee. And the committee met yesterday, by the way, just so people know. These 7 people met yesterday to make a recommendation to the mayor on who to hire. Now, we've had this happen in the past where mayors have gotten all the neighborhood leaders together. As a matter of fact, I think Carlos Caesar will remember doing that to interview the candidates for chief to see who they wanted for chief. How did that pan out? I'm not exactly sure. But I know for a fact that I wouldn't want to sit on that committee. But my big thing is this is a mayor who ran on transparency. He constantly said transparency. His position on not releasing the names of the people on this committee is not transparent. And his position is, from what I have been told, is that he wanted to prevent people from contacting the members of this committee. He didn't want to put them under a lot of scrutiny by the public. That's baloney. That is baloney. Those people should be scrutinized. We should see who they are. Which political hack did you put on there? I want to know. Who's the political hack that you put on this committee? All right. And that's what I'm going to call them. Who are they? Because I've already seen it in your administration, Mr. Mayor. There are people that shouldn't be there that have been there only because of who they're politically connected to. And I understand politics better than anyone else. And I know that this goes on all the time. Okay. But the people of Fall River elected you not to be the same old, same old. They elected you to the office of mayor to be the change. And you're not being the change. And that's the problem. Just because we're in the middle of a crisis doesn't mean that you can't make the change. My problem with you, and I said this publicly before, I said it as a matter of fact on one of your Facebook posts or on one of Gene St. Pierre's Facebook posts, you are a non-confrontational type of person. And that's not a bad thing. I mean, that's your personality, and that's okay. But sometimes when you're the mayor, you have to be confrontational. And that's most of the time. The other thing is you cannot govern by committee. You cannot govern by committee because then nothing gets done.
Well, that's true. As the samurai used to say, the leader has to take the arrows in the forehead because they have to be in front and looking at the problem. And I also believe that he said that the interim chief would not be an applicant, and he is. So there's another deviation from what was said. But you know what my problem is? Listen, I was a professional firefighter. I know about fire service. I can sit down and discuss that. I can look at contract language because contract language, regardless of departments, is different. But when you're talking about the inner workings of a complex department, especially a public safety department, especially police, you really have to find out if this individual can and has, is up to date in policing methods and has the right direction he's going to take your police department. And police officers understand police departments. You know, what a faith-based, what your priest can do in selecting, we keep going in and out, I'm not sure, what a priest or a minister or a rabbi can do in selecting a police chief is beyond me. As I said, in an oversight committee, I think this committee might be an okay oversight committee. But when you're selecting a department head in a specialized field, they're normally interviewed by people who are in that field. I mean, I've never seen an interview for when you take your PhD thesis, TJ, when you took your PhD and you defended your thesis, did you have to go into a committee made up of janitors and groundskeepers and stuff, or were they PhDs in the field you were dealing with? So,
no, I got the guy who mucked out the horse stalls.
this is ridiculous.
Yes.
This is a politically correct. Let's everybody feel good. Look, I'm including everybody in the process, but I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, I disagree. Everybody should not be involved in the process of selecting the leader. It should be professionals, people who can accurately evaluate these candidates' ability to do this extremely important job.
And all we have to do is look at what's happened with previous chiefs. I mean, it's kind of obvious that they all haven't been, the best selection. And on some of those chiefs, committees like this were formed. So we have to really look at this. And again, as you said, the mayor said that he was going to appoint as an interim chief somebody who would not be a candidate for the position of chief. But now the gentleman who's the interim chief is put his name in there to be the chief. Is that a bad thing? Well, it is if you follow what the mayor said. But you can't blame the guy for wanting to be the chief. I personally believe that, like the fire department, we should take the police chief out of the contract position and put him back into civil service. I think it needs to be there. This way, we don't have this problem. This way, there isn't this problem with forming a committee and having my guy get the job, and this is the way it's going to be, and I'm going to set up the contract the way I want. No, let the chief be a civil service position, and that's it. And then we don't have to worry about these games.
And you're right, CJ, because if you had civil service, it would be you could only select from the top 3 candidates that took the chief's exam. So now you would have to select somebody. And look, as far as that police officer who put in for the job, listen, like you said, I can see him. He got the job. Hey, I like this job. This is a pretty good gig. I want to apply for it. But did the man, as you said, in transparency, did he tell him when he took that job, you will absolutely not be able to apply for this job if you accept this on an interim basis? And then did he change the rules?
Correct. And that's what I'm saying.
About transparency. We don't know how this went down. Did he just say that for political correctness, and now all of a sudden he's back in the mix? And that's the problem that I have with this. Look, let's look at Fall River's history. We had an ice house guy that was the head of DCM. We had another person who didn't bury the bodies in the right place. And we get more unqualified people than probably any other community. Look, we all know about politics, but we've raised this to an art form in the city of Fall River. I mean, we have had more incompetence. They stick them everywhere. Well, we remember the guy who was a waiter and was an assistant, and now he's in some department somewhere that he has absolutely no background to be in.
Right, exactly.
No nothing. And then we wonder why the city's a mess. We wonder why. And then we get a city administrator who buys a house for $85,000, sells it for $300 and some thousand, and it's assessed at $190 some thousand. But there's no political patronage. There's no favoritism in this city. What do they think? Do they think we're all like totally stupid? That this is nuts. But we're talking about selecting a police chief. We should have police professionals evaluate his ability. You want to make an oversight committee on the police department made up of these 7 people? Go for it. But I think this is wrong. And I think, again, it's to the detriment of the city and its citizens.
I hear you. Well, the mayor had an interesting, we don't have a lot of time, but the mayor issued an emergency order yesterday, which requires the public and essential businesses to wear masks when you're in a building. That's putting in a snowball, for the lack of a better expression. So now, if you want to go into a store, if you want to go out, you need to wear a mask. The mayor wants that. It's a strong advisory. Obviously, he didn't make it mandatory. It seemed to be a carbon copy of what the governor said. And it seems like a lot of the mayor's orders are carbon copies of the governor's orders. So it's interesting to see. But it's going to be interesting to watch what happens over this weekend. So we have something to talk about on Monday, because it's going to definitely see some differences. The mask order goes into effect tomorrow. So we'll see how many people actually follow that mask order. I know that there are a lot of people who are wearing masks when they go out. There are some people that do not, and that's their choice. But this is a strong advisory order from the mayor. So
let's think about over the weekend. Let's mull this over.
Yeah, definitely.
The incompetence of some of the people that we've seen put in positions. We see our CFO, misrepresenting figures for decades, and they're still there. We see our former city administrator being, and there's never any consequences. Chip, we got to cut it. We got 20 seconds. So. Well, that's just 4 minutes. Okay, hey, listen, everybody, wear a mask or a hood.